defunding the schools, like we're going to have to look for ways to. Jamie, you might.
He's gonna start calling it that. Defund the schools instead of defund the police.
Absolutely, we're defunding.
That's a new tagline.
Well, is that not what we're
No,
doing?
I think it's. It just that you said
defund.
that. Defund the schools.
I got a whole list on the Snoopy side right here. I'm ready
Did you
to go.
put defund the police? I mean, defund the schools.
Drain the. All kinds of.
Okay. Oh, no. Okay, I'm ready to hit the gavel. Seriously. Okay.
I can't make this stuff up.
I'd like to call our Wednesday, March 11th, 2026 Roanoke County School Board Budget Work Session to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I think so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Item 2.01, 2026-2027 Budget Work Session number 3, Ms. Susan Peterson.
Good afternoon, Madam Clerk, members of the board. We've got Mr. Irby returning. We're going to go ahead and let him start kind of like he did the last time. He's got some additional information in here on the spousal exclusion so that you can take a deeper dive into that recommendation from his team.
All right, well, thank you. I guess that thing can hear me okay. I appreciate it. We just went back and tried to rehash all of the claims numbers, relook at everything in more detail about spousal exclusion. So we've got a couple of slides here. Well, you've got them in front of you, actually. Trying to kind of detail out what is there. You want to jump in there? Great. This was just a couple of things that we wanted to re-mention to you. Susan had brought up something important to us in between the two meetings about spousal exclusion, talking about, well, you know, as spouses leave, of course, revenue goes down a little bit, which is true. But everything that we talked about spousal exclusions, I talked about with Steve Parsons several times, I feel quite certain that will save you some money if you decide to do that, and that additional money can carry across year after year and help avoid some large claims, help keep renewals down, and also allow you to restation that money to help your employees that are here in some way as you go forward. So I think it can help overall to do this. We've had numerous schools do it. Voluntary products, we're looking at that as maybe next year you may want to consider that. You can usually get the voluntary product company, and I know y'all did an RFP recently, to pick up your FSA fees and HSA fees, so you can avoid some of that type of fee, which I imagine y'all's fees are somewhere $50,000 to $100,000 there. The RX analysis reporting, we're still trying to get all of that repricing done. Steve had mentioned maybe doing that mid-year this year, which would give plenty of time for y'all to study the results of the repricing and decide whether you want to head down that road or not. The other thing that we keep looking back at and trying to make a determination on is cost of change mid-year. The fact that y'all's plans have deductibles and everybody's halfway through the year on their deductible and out of pocket makes it real difficult to switch it back to a plan year, but long term, if we can get it across there, it would be a good thing to do. I think with the increase you've had this year, I would definitely postpone that this year because y'all are trying to absorb as much of that increase as you can, and to say, okay, well, let's give everybody some additional money in July this year over and above what we had planned to budget to help offset the fact that we're going to reset the deductibles and the out-of-pocket limits in July, I think is probably more than you want to bite off this year, would be my thought on that piece of it. Okay. And as last time, don't hesitate to interrupt me at any point. Questions are always good.
Since you asked.
Okay.
RX analysis repricing, why wouldn't we have started that day one?
Well, we had to get all the information from Blue Cross across to us and then out to the
how many months
people
are
that
we
are
into
repricing
this?
it. I'm sorry.
How many months are we into this?
Mid-December till now.
Okay.
Yeah, so over Christmas, trying to get everything done and get it going. It just took a little time to get going. And
Okay.
I apologize.
I just don't know why we wouldn't do that day one to try and save that money.
Well, we were trying to get hold of that, all that information. Which you're talking
Do we have
about.
it now?
Yes, it's
Okay.
all in the hands of Steve and out to one of the pharmacy benefit managers to get some repricing done to see what it looks like. We just don't have it back.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll have that soon.
Well, and you brought up something, I've brought this up several times over the last few years in terms of moving that deductible for plan year instead of waiting until July, for it to reset. Is that something that we can slowly implement or kind of go back a couple months each year, or how would that look? I mean, are we ever going to get to a point to where we can actually do that without creating a massive hole, a deficit?
Right. There's no real good way to do it. We've looked at it from both directions. Do you January 1 sign an 18-month contract to get you back to July and just increase your deductibles and out-of-pockets somewhat to the employees because you're giving them more time to meet their deductibles and out-of-pockets? So you can look at it that way, or you can chop it off this July or next July, just chop off in the middle of the year, which resets the deductibles. You could chop it off mid-year and make the deductible less going forward for the next 12 months to get you back through the next June. Or you could chop it off, since you got the HRA and the HSA set up, you could make a one-time contribution there across the board to help people, realizing that some of the people will have met the out-of-pocket limit, while some of them will have not met it at all. But across the you can't just say, well, we're going to help these people that have and not these people that aren't. So you'd be doing an average across the board. And we have not calculated exactly what that would cost, but we can get a little closer to that as we get on a little bit further in the year and start pulling claims again.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think that would be very positive for the employee.
Okay. Well, we'll look at it. Excuse me. As I said, I think I would take this year, plan on it, and think on doing it next year, either January or July. We'll look at going 18 months from January, or we better to leave it for that half a year.
Thank you.
We even looked at it depending on with some other groups of January 1, let's just use a zero deductible for 6 months. Maybe that's the way to do it. And then when you change them July 1, you're good to go. You see what I'm saying? You hadn't heard them that way. Okay.
And one last thing on the spousal exclusion. Why is that so big? I mean, you don't have any range of thought. Maybe 30% would accept it, or 50 or 70, or
yes, I can tell you from experience, and we'll look at this chart here in a second, but I can tell you from experience what we've noticed in the past with other accounts. You're probably going to lose somewhere 30 to 40% of your spouses. So
$300,000 to $400,000.
So 30 to 40% of your spouses. No, sir. That's 30% of the spouses will generate probably $1 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
And
we've got it's not an interactive chart right here that you're going to look at, but it's a chart, and I can get it over to Susan, and she can get it out to y'all, and you play with it.
Now, in case anybody just heard us, let's make sure they understand. They have to have insurance eligible at their place of work. We're not saying eliminate spouses.
No, we're not eliminating spouses.
Right.
We're not talking about people that are on Medicare.
Right.
Spouses that are on Medicare. We're talking about actively at work spouses that are offered health insurance at their place of work.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, I'm just throwing this out there again. I'm not saying I'm for it again. I just want to know. Mm-hmm. But if they have it available in another workplace, that workplace has to provide that for them, right?
They
not family, but
yeah, they can't exclude them if that's what you're saying. As an active employee working full time, they're eligible for the plan.
Right.
They just have a choice. Do I go there or come here? And then what happens a lot of times, everybody knows y'all got the best plan out there.
That's right.
Is the thought process. That's not necessarily true, but that is what. And people get in the habit of getting somewhere and they don't change. They don't look at it every year. But in actuality, and I'll make this statement for anybody that's listening, you need to look at your costing every year with your group health and plan, where you work and where your spouse work. And do you separate your kids or keep them together? If you only have 2 children, you probably need to be subscriber plus child. But if you don't ever look at the cost at your place of work compared to the cost here at the school, you're hurting yourself is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
that
Well,
is important.
it's 27. I guess projected claims is 27 million. We're going to get to that here in a second, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean,
see, I think
million.
next
I'm
slide.
not saying $1 million is not a lot of money, right?
Right.
But 27 million and $1 million, I mean, it's not a huge difference there. You know, the only thing I fear is hurting the employee, right? Like I never want to do anything to hurt the employee.
Absolutely.
I mean, we already know, and this obviously you sat in the last meeting and listened to all this. You know, our pay scales aren't where we want them to be, and then we turn around and hit the people that have family insurance even harder by taking their spouse off and potentially causing the spouse to pay a lot more than what they're paying here.
Right.
And that's the thing that we got to keep in mind. And it is a hard line because $1 million, that's not quite 1% raise. I think last time, I can't remember correctly. Maybe Ken, you maybe Susan, you know, but 1.5 million is about what it would take to give everybody a 1% raise. You know, so we just got to figure out where the line is.
Right. Well, and Susan, Steve, and I, Lauren, we've discussed over and over again. You know, one of Susan's points is I've got this much revenue going in the bucket, and then all this money going out in claims. Well, as spouses, if you use a spousal exclusion, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder, if you don't mind me talking about it. If you do the spousal exclusion, then every spouse that leaves planned, if I'm set up as family and my spouse has to leave, then at that point it costs me less money, which means there's less employee money going over in the bucket. And if my spouse never has a claim, you just lost money.
And do we have a number, Susan, of how many spouses we have?
You do. It's in.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a list of the
he has that
claims, too.
later on.
Yep.
Do you want me to?
All right, sorry to get ahead of you. That's just,
I know it's no problem.
I've got to leave early, and I want to make sure we.
Yeah, but I'll
Hammer
also
this
make
down.
a comment to you here too. The spousal exclusion is not just about this year, and it's not about how much you save this year. It's about you having your funds available to support your employees. Not necessarily are you here to support their families as such under the health insurance program. It's two ways of looking at that. You can do this and take that money and rewrite it towards increases in salaries. You mentioned salaries. Well, that's a way maybe to increase salaries. This one and a lot of other little things that y'all can do over the years as you work forward to get there, so to speak. It's not all going to happen overnight. And you may decide this year, let's leave it alone this year. Let us do some surveying and find out who it's going to affect. Let them send us their employee deduction sheet from their place of work and their benefit level, and we'll be happy to have somebody look at it and explain to them. And we'll do that at open enrollment as well. If they'll bring their information in from their place of work, we'll lay them side by side with the schools and say why they should be on the school or why they're better off at their place of work.
Well, and anymore, I feel like insurance is just as important as retirement because I think it's the number one thing that keeps a lot of people from being able to retire.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so I don't want to see us get into a situation where that's the case too. We have 30-year teachers and they can't afford to retire.
Right. No doubt.
If a spouse is excluded, could they buy back in and could they remain on this policy and pay additional? Or if they are employed somewhere else, are they required to go somewhere else?
Our suggestion on that is usually don't set up to allow them to buy back in.
Do not?
Do not.
Okay.
Prime example of that, if I work here and my spouse has cancer and you're going to charge me $300 a month extra to have her here, she's going to run up a $200,000 claim this year, and I paid you $3,600, 3 times 12, $3,600 for the privilege of putting a $200,000 claim in your pocket. And I know that sounds harsh a little bit, but it's called adverse selection, and that's in the insurance industry, and that's what you would be allowing them to do is adversely select against your plan. This is not a very kind industry at this point.
No, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's a business, right?
Yeah,
and I
but
mean,
to
and
be
we have
frank,
to run a
it's
business.
not a very kind industry the way it's working.
I guess the only thing that bothers me is, you know, we have all these people that are doing an honorable job, right? One of the most honorable job in my mind, you know, alongside public safety that anybody could ever do.
Sure.
And they know going into it that they're not going to get paid a fortune and be rich,
That's
right? But That's why I have such a hard time with this.
Oh, I agree with you.
You know, is I don't look at it like a business, and
Nope.
I know we have to a certain point, but I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we're benefiting the majority of the employees. And I know sometimes you hurt some employees by doing that, but
Yeah.
I just
No,
hate
I
taking
agree
away,
with you. I agree with you.
especially when we know our raises aren't going to be great.
What y'all do is more important than anything else out there. Taking care of those kids. There's nothing more important than that. So anyway, this slide right here, this past year for 2025, during the calendar year, y'all paid the plan paid out $25 million, that top number. Of that, your high cost claimants generated $17 million. And the net on the high cost claimants was $15,600,000 because of your stop loss insurance. So every claim over $250,000 comes off of your net claims. You're filing an insurance claim basically for that excess amount. So if you had $1 million claim this past year, you paid the first $250,000, and that reinsurance picked up the next $750,000 of it. And that's why that's the explanation for that stop loss $1,555,000 that came back from Blue Cross. For that, I don't have it on that slide, but your stop loss insurance last year was $1.9 million. So they made $250,000, $300,000 out of that, a little over $300,000 last year, which is not a big profit margin when they're taking all the risk on the reinsurance, because very, very easily they could have spent $6 million in stop loss insurance depending on what's going on any given year. So I felt like they were pretty in line with what went on there. You are getting a 25% rate increase on the reinsurance this year, which still leaves you within the normal benchmark of where your reinsurance should be based on number of employees that you have currently. So that number looks pretty fair where they are now. So right at $2.4 million for the coming year. And we'll watch that this year, and if they don't spend but $1 million of the 2.4, then we'll have a discussion with them about fixing that next year. So of the high cost claimants, the spouses generated $3 million worth of claims. Now they're only the claims from $25,000 to $1 million or more. Y'all did not have a claim over $1 million this year. Okay, so your largest claim was under $1 million, but this doesn't include all the spouses that had nothing to do with that $3 million number right there. This is only the large claims that we're looking at. Okay.
Is there any way to know how many of those spouses would not have been on our policy and had to be on their own policy?
It is not at this point. Now, we can put something into the system. We're still unsure what system we're using. My office has been talking back and forth with the county. Is it Darren? Derek? Yeah, Derek that runs the systems, about whether we can set up something called Employee Navigator to feed into y'all's system, or whether we're going to need to use y'all's system when we do the open enrollment. In our system, we would put a questionnaire in there that as they work through and enroll themselves on how people are helping them enroll, they would say, are you eligible for insurance at your place of work? You know, it might start out by saying, are you employed, and are you eligible for health insurance at your place of work? And then in doing that, by end of July, we can put a report together and tell you exactly what we're looking at that point as to how many people would be spouses that would leave your plan the following year when you put in the exclusion. So as I was saying, you can do it this year and kind of let it go where it goes, or we can do some surveying and kind of get an idea of how many people are on your plan that would be coming off. But that is not going to tie them to claims. So it's not going to tell you exactly who the claimants are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's no way to find that out.
I would say you don't want to know.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anthem's got the information. If we fed them the names, I don't know that they would send us the information, but it's there. Yes. Okay. And then FY27 year, they're projecting claims this time to be $27,220,000. Anthem is usually within 2 or 3%, and they give you a number. They're pretty good at their numbers. So it will be somewhere right around that neighborhood for the coming year. Okay. So then looking a little bit further, your KeyCare 1000 plan, you had 25 claimants this past year, spouses that generated 1.8 million in claims. The HealthKeepers 2000 had 910,000. The HDHP, you had 3 claims over 25,000 that generated 316,000. And then last year, KeyCare 2000, which was discontinued last July, that $51,000 just lagged into this year from last year. So it occurred most likely in May or June and did not get through the system. So it ended up in high cost claimants this year. Okay.
So if I understand this correctly, the spousal claims are about 18%, somewhere 17, 18%.
That's close, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then this chart right here is a chart that I use a lot of these types of charts in the office because it helps me understand what's going on. If you notice right up at the top there, you'll see departing spouses 10%. So this is an interactive chart. I can send this over if y'all wanted to look at and kind of gauge what you think might be going on or might be happening. We broke down the spouses who signed up as subscriber and spouse, and it shows the numbers in each plan coming across. It does the same thing with the families to show the spouses that are covered currently, and then shows the total on the, right below that. But then where she's got the cursor right now, that number assumed waiving, assumed leaving, is based on the 10% up above, and you just go change the 10%, and it'll. If you put in 20, it's going to double those numbers. You put in 30, it's going to triple those numbers. And that will also triple all of the costing. Now, the monthly cost right now, $296 is what it costs if you're a subscriber and you add your spouse. Y'all are charging, paying $296 a month. And if they are adding their spouse to their employee, child, or children coverage, you're paying not children, but child coverage, you're paying $370 a month. So then all this is doing is multiplying the number of employees times the amount of money times 12 to give you the potential annual savings. So right there you can see it says premium savings $185,000. Below that it's got annual employer HRA, HSA savings, another $29,000. Those two numbers total $215,000. So at 20%, that'd be $430,000. At 30%, it'd be 3 times and so forth. Okay. Now then below that, we just took your high cost claimants and just put in 15%. So assuming the spouses that leave, if that reduces your high cost claimants, your spousal claims by 15%, just on the high cost claimants, you're talking about $460,000 more dollars. Now, we have no way of knowing. It could just be the healthy ones that leave, but that's not normally what happens. We look back at high cost claimants. Of the high cost claimants, those under 55 years old are about almost $2 million of the $3 million that we're looking at. The ones over 55 were more people, but they were less dollar amounts, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I wasn't expecting to see it that way. Steve Parsons, when I talked to him about that piece of it, because you would think normally people under 55 are still working, and then over 55, a lot of them are getting on towards retirement and retiring. His comment was, well, you know, men as they get older generate all the claims. So he said the 55 and older group, if there are spouses there, they're probably still working, and for them to move on to a different, back at their place of work wouldn't be a bad thing for the school either. So you kind of stand to maybe gain in both directions there was kind of what he was getting at. But we just don't know. There's no way to put a pin to it to show you exactly what would happen.
I had a question. It might be hard to answer, maybe impossible to answer. How much is there a range on average, I guess, nationwide in terms of how much insurance costs for a single person? Right? Like if you're working for XYZ company, I mean, I know it probably wildly varies.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We can tell you how much it costs in this area, probably.
I would like to see that that way we at least know, okay, you're paying this much for your spouse to be there. On average, this is what it costs. So at least we kind of know the impact financially monthly.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the only thing I would say too is, like you mentioned earlier, this is what we perceive to be a very good policy. So when, a spouse, God forbid, gets sick, they're covered pretty well. Where you force a spouse that's working for a private company that may not have that great of insurance, then we put our people in a financial hardship.
Could be.
Because their insurance isn't great. And none of us can help if we have a heart attack or cancer or anything else. So that's just something for everybody to keep in mind.
Well, yeah, the people that had it this year most likely are not going to be your high cost claimants next year. There's a different group of us moving forward to run that, to end up with that high claim. And it's unfortunate, but it is a fact of the way it all works. It's a fact of life.
I think that first part would give us an idea of, the average family, what financial impact is that going to put on them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can try to get some of that.
On that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where we're going to get it from yet, but I'll ask Steve.
I appreciate it.
I've got some ideas, but he'll know better than
I imagine it wildly varies so much, right?
It does, yeah. I can tell you that the different school accounts that we have, the range of monthly total premium is anywhere from $700-800 to $1,200 for the same benefit. It's that much difference in some of them. But keep in mind, all of it is driven by claims. So the one that has the worst rates this year may have the best rates in 2 years as another group overtakes them because of their claims.
I think the other thing we need to impress upon them when we have open enrollment, and somebody said it today, maybe it was Dr. Soltis, I can't remember, but somebody said, a lot of times people get in a rut of they've got insurance and they just renew it. It's just what I do. I'm going to renew it this year, next year, and they don't think about it. I think some of these spousal benefits, or they may not, where they're paying for on this plan, it's paid for by the employer. There may be some benefit. There may not be many, but there's some of these people that would benefit, I think, to look at that. Just take a look at it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I ask groups all the time, how long has it been since you got your auto insurance quoted? Or your homeowner's insurance quoted?
You get happy with it and you just let it go.
Go right along.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be amazed at how much money you can save every now and then because the insurance company's going to get you in here, and they do that
Step
to you.
up. Absolutely.
And as long as you'll stay where you are, they're happy about it. I can tell you that.
Bad about that's home or mortgage.
Yeah, but I mean, you take your employees. They are running, they're busy, they're doing everything they can possibly physically and mentally do.
That's right.
And it's real hard to stop long enough to relook at things.
That's
exactly right. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Sam.
So let me pull up my PowerPoint real quick. I do have a little bit of there we go. So I do want to take a re-peek at the health insurance premiums. I've got an updated slide in there in state revenue, and then we'll just breeze through the priority list afterwards. We did present a balanced request to you, and so we'll just kind of flip through the priorities then. With the health insurance premium, what we did want to take a look at is if we implemented this program with a spousal exception, we would want to look at offering an additional employee plus children rate. And so our recommendation, if we did this, would be to go with option B. So if the last presentation I gave you had two options, option A for insurance rates and option B. Option A pushed the 22.5% premium down to both employee and employer. Option B pushed 10% increase to employee, and the employer picked up the extra in addition to covering their own 22.5%. And so what I'm showing here is option B, where the employee, their premium would only go up 10% of what they're paying today. And then we have added for each of the plans that, like I said, the employee plus children option, and we have split it between the employee portion and the employer portion in a similar fashion that kind of makes it fit in with all of the rest of our plans.
The one question I asked last time about this was, and you sent me a nice chart that had all that information, but we probably ought to share it with everybody in terms of what it would take pay raise wise for someone not the lowest paid person on family insurance to not take a pay deduction.
Right.
Right. I don't know if you have that chart you could pull up to show everybody, but I think one of them was like 11% or something. It was quite a bit.
One of them was quite a bit. I didn't bring that with me, so I apologize for not bringing that with me. But I did go through, and we do
probably look through your email and pull it up.
Hoping to offer a 3.5% raise, and if we were able to offer 3.5% raise, and we did this option B, we would have 15 employees that would be worse off if they did not change their insurance selection next year from this year.
And change your insurance in terms of going away from family insurance or going to the 2000 deductible?
All I can tell is that if they stayed on the exact same plan,
right,
at the same level,
which I guess honestly, $1,000, you know, that's a lot of money for somebody who's already, like you say, going to take a hit or even remain at zero, flat.
Right.
And so you say that. So basically, and I know this is, I don't even know how to ask this question because there's so many different pay rates, right? But our teachers are basically, let's say this real quick too. I'll just be the dingbat that says this. Or maybe I should wait until you tell everybody. Or how are we going to do this to tell everybody about the Roanoke County? They're going to.
We can wait until I get into the.
Well, I think that's imperative to know now, though. While we're talking about, so my question is, you know, we're going to lose $3 million from the county. The county's going to defund the schools off of the revenue sharing, $3 million. So we're playing with a lot less funds. That's basically 2% raises to our teachers. So my question is, when you give the raises, our teachers it's probably pretty much just going to cover the insurance. Is there going to be, I mean, are they essentially not getting raises because we're covering the insurance? You see what I'm saying? And I don't know how to ask that because there's so many different ranges.
There are a lot of ranges, and I really only focused on the bottom. Okay. The 15 people are IAs, bus drivers, nutrition leads, and associates. So the folks at the bottom of our pay scale are the ones that are going to be harmed by this because they get paid the least.
Doesn't that stink?
It does.
The lowest paid are going to be the ones that are going to get stuck the worst.
Well, especially in those jobs are hard to fill. We've always had a hard time keeping our cafeteria fully staffed, our bus drivers.
So do you think they're trying to get us to do what they're trying to get the city to do? Reduce 150 employees? Or do you think they're trying to get us to close this? I know they've said close schools in some of the conversations that's been had. Is any of that? I mean, I guess that's a bigger conversation for later, but I just hate that we're not, you know, we're not even giving them a cost of living. We're just giving them enough to cover the insurance. We haven't done that since I've been here. We have not only covered insurance, at least to my knowledge. So it's a little frustrating. And we're at already, as we recognized at the last budget work session, our middle group at least are the bottom tier of paid workers in the valley. Right? right? Am I right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, and you have to calculate in inflation off the top.
Sure.
So even if you were to zero out, you're still taking a pay
Still,
deduction.
still going backwards. I mean, it's just,
Well, and I think that proves the chart that you brought up last time, where you start out at 47,000, 15 years later you're at 59. That's less than $1,000 a year for 15 years. Like that's disgusting. There's no just one word for it. That's it.
but I just want to make, as Brent said, I just want to make sure at the bare minimum, I mean, this is sad. This is sad that we're having this conversation, but that we're at least covering the health insurance.
So I think this is actually a good time for me to say like
Go ahead.
what is going on with the county budget. So basically, during the budget development process, Mr. K. Wood reached out to myself and Dr. Nicely and basically said that after reviewing the available revenue and the broader fiscal needs of the county, along with reviewing the school division's available revenue, including the LCI difference where we're getting more money from the state, and they looked at the potential one-time money that was in, I can't remember if it was the House or Senate version of the budget, they were not going to be able to maintain the traditional status quo transfer of funds to us. So initially, they were asking for $4.5 million. But we worked with them. Matter of fact, Dr. Nicely was like, that can't be right. So he called and double checked, and yes, that was right.
So hold that thought for a second. So what did we have in carryover? 4.2?
It would have included
Something very close.
the
Something very
emergency
close.
fund.
So something very close to the number they're asking for. Do you think there's any coincidence to that? Do you think that they're trying to pull the same thing the city's doing, except do it this way so it doesn't look as bad? Like that's where my mind goes, right? And none of them have enough courage to call and say that to us. They have to send their county administrator to talk to our superintendent. They can't have 2x2s or have a conversation. They just drop it on us 15 minutes before a meeting. I mean, and I'm not throwing off on anybody. I'm just putting facts out here. Those are the things that happen. If any of them want to comment about it, please call me. Please go to the media. Do whatever you want to do, because the things that I'm putting out right now are facts, right? They should have called us and said this. This is no different than what the city's doing. They're just doing it in a roundabout way, hoping that the media is not going to catch on and realize it.
And we're not in a bad place like the city.
Well, and I hate to say this.
We increased
It
revenue.
seems to me that the excuse that they gave you was that they wouldn't be able to give their employees raises if they didn't take this money from us. Am I right?
So they were not going to be able to do what they wanted to do. Yes.
Okay, so it seems to me that they didn't control their budget, yet we did. And now they're coming to us, robbing from us, because they're interested in putting $10 million into a Hollins library, keeping the Greenridge Center open that cost over $500,000 a year of county taxpayer money. If you and I own that business, I believe it would have probably gone out of business by now, because I think that thing's been open since 2007. So calculate up the millions of dollars there, right? So I think it's important. I'm not throwing off on anybody. I'm not being negative. I think it's important for the media to get a hold of this. And more importantly, we need the community to understand what's going on here. We need our teachers to understand what's going on right here. Because taking essentially 2%. I mean, if we're looking at 3.5%, that'd be 5.5% if we wanted to take it up that high, right? Which would absorb some of these insurance, issues. And my mind goes to, where's the teachers union? Because they should be all over this, right? I mean, there's no representation here from them. I don't see the media here. So I think it's up to us to get the message out that we're getting robbed here. And, 2 months ago or a month and a half, something like that, we get called over and, hey, we want to show you how the revenue agreement works. We want to show you how good a deal you have, right? So we go over, we listen, all the niceties, all the great things. And then 2 months later, hey, guess what? We're going to break the revenue agreement. That's my frustration, right? And I know it's nobody's fault in this room, but I think it's very important for people to understand that I'm not cowtailing to them. And it's, if somebody asks why we can't provide transportation for sports, or we can't do certain things that we used to be able to do, we'll point the finger at the Board of Supervisors, because that's where it's at. That's my piece.
I love you, Brent. Did you read my Snoopy card?
No, but I mean, I wasn't going to say anything today, but I feel like that it's important for the public to be at least educated, at least have some knowledge as to what's going on here.
Absolutely.
And it's fine. If the public agrees with what they're doing, that's fine, right? I just think that it's important for them to know. I mean, I'm nothing more than a representative of the Catawba District, and I feel like they put me here for the best interest of the schools, right? And I understand the Board of Supervisors have more responsibilities than just the schools. But when you want to run over top of us, and you don't have enough courage as a leader to come and speak with us, and you want to do it in a cowardly fashion, well, I'm going to call you out on it. Sorry. I mean, it is what it is. And if anybody had any leadership skills over there, they would understand exactly what I'm saying. Because if you don't come to me and tell me why you're doing something, I'm going to make assumptions. And assumptions are never good. And I had that conversation with several of them, but it just goes on deaf ears. And they're going to do whatever they want to do, right? There's political consequences to everything. Probably political consequences for me for bringing this up today and saying the things I'm saying. But it's the truth. And I would have this debate with anybody that these are the facts.
So at the end of the day, they wanted to start at 4.5 million. We worked with Richard to get it down to, and his staff to get it down to 3, which was enabling us to still give a 3.5% raise. Yes, it's not what we were hoping for, and still be able to cover a bigger portion of the health insurance increases versus pushing it all to the employee. So,
but don't worry.
Trying to minimize.
Don't worry, because come election time, they'll have all over their election material what they've done for the schools.
Absolutely. And how they got the SROs in the schools and how they increased funding. So thank you for the lead in. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air. Yeah. So here's what I would ask is, and again, I don't know if I'm getting way off task, but you brought it up. You know, they've increased the size of government every year for the last decade, especially the last 5 or 6 years, right? They've increased real estate revenue again this year. Probably, I'm guessing, I haven't seen the sheet, need to call over there and get the sheet, 10, 12% again this year. They've raised revenue by $50 million over the last 5 or 6 years. Where is that money at? Building an $11 million library, as Brent brought up. Green Ridge Center that loses some, I don't know what it loses, about $500,000 a year, I'm guessing. You know, where, I don't understand why they're cutting into the school's revenue when we are the only shining piece in the county right now. I mean, why would you go into a business and say, look, your sales team is the best in the valley. Well, we're going to cut that sales team because we don't need all that sales team. Why would you do that? Why would you hit the one thing that's making you profitable, that's bringing people, that they're saying, you know, that the schools, everybody wants to get to the county for the schools. We can compete in an environment where they give vouchers and private schools because we're that good. And I don't say that lightly. It's certainly not because of me and I love my board members, but not because of them. It's because of y'all. It's because of the people in this room. So, you know, it just makes no sense. And as Brent said very well, where's the outrage from the public? I guess the city problems overshadow us. And I get that we've done an excellent job of, you know, the revenue they give us. We haven't asked for anything extra. We're just asking for what the revenue sharing agreement has been to continue. Where is that money that they get? They get 59% of every dollar that comes in that's not shared, right? So over the 50 million, add another 10 million this year, they're getting 60 million more every year than 2020. What are y'all doing with that?
Well, they will not have a public meeting for you to ask those questions, and obviously they won't even give us a call to explain what's going on
about it.
Right.
So, I mean, they've talked to all of y'all at least and told you what they wanted you to hear, but they haven't even called me to talk to me. Yes, and I appreciate it, David. You did say that Tammy said call. I'm not calling her. Did you call them to ask for this? No. They called you, asked you to come see them. 2 by 2, so that we could have a lack of transparency, so that we didn't have to go before the public, so that we didn't have to go before the media. I mean, give me a break. Look, you can get mad at me for fighting for the schools, but I'm not elected to be on the county board. I'm elected to be on the school board, and that's who I'm fighting for. And quite honestly, I probably wouldn't be fighting this hard if we weren't this good. We're the best, 11th in the state, 1st in the region.
I revised that previous. It's actually 10th.
Now we're 10th?
Yes, sir.
Holy cow. So, I mean, let's go screw with that. Let's mess that up so that we can just be a dumpster fire. I mean, I don't get it, but we'll make it work, right? Our people still are going to do the right thing. We're going to ask them to work just as hard as they did this year. We're going to get behind in pay worse than we are now. They'll make it work. I firmly believe that. And it's not fair to ask them to work harder and get the same. We're getting the same results. That bubble chart just illustrates it so well. We're giving about 60. Well, I forget. Am I right? 16,000 a student, and everybody above us up to the Northern Virginia and everywhere else about 23,000 a student. So we're doing amazingly well. But I'm glad Brent finally came to the table. I appreciate it, and I know that privately we're trying to massage relationships and not hurt feelings, and feelings have been hurt, so maybe that's a part of what's happening here. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'm here for my constituents and people, and I wish they would be too. I think it's best for us to think about down the road. We become a retirement community, and what happens after you retire, and I'm almost there. So, if we don't bring in jobs for our youth, if we don't, they put these silly statistics up about economic development that have no teeth in it. Just show me some jobs. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll quit, is, we had a hotel come to Benton and we gave economic incentives to get them here, right? And I'm proud, I'm happy that we did, right? We go to the city and they put the one down at Blue Hills and they gave economic incentives to get them there. And that's a good thing. We need more hotel space, right? We need more spaces for people to stay when they come here, whether it be for the Parkway or the Explorer Park or whatever places they go in the county. They're building one down in Botetourt, and you know what they said they gave to get there when they asked for economic, what incentives did you give? And I forget the guy, he's a former television person, but he said, we didn't give a dime. They wanted to come to Botetourt. They knew what businesses we were bringing here. They knew what thriving community we have. We used to be that community. Roanoke County was that community. And so, we're going to still try and strive to keep the schools where they are, but we're doing it with less. And as Brent said also, I don't understand where the community was that gets so outraged about, lack of public funding. I don't get it, but we are where we are, and that's my soapbox for today. And I said I wasn't going to do this again. That's two. So the next one will be the third strike. So,
well, I think it's okay. I think it needs to be said.
And go ahead.
I was going to chime in just briefly because I do recognize that you still have more presentation for us to go through, and at the end of the day, we still will have to figure out how to make the numbers work. I share the frustration and the feeling of unease about the fact that we're going to have to squeeze the budget to make sure that we're not harming our employees more. And at the end of the day, I'll be on record saying I think 3.5% is the wrong direction to go. I think we need to be aiming for 10, 11% to be catching up, because at the end of the day, 6.5% is what it's going to take to keep even with where they are this year. That's, by the sounds of it, not going to be something we can do unless we're willing to do what other districts have done, which is to cut programs and cut services, which I don't think is the right way to do that either. So it puts us in an awful predicament right now to figure out how to make these numbers work. But I do think that at the end of the day, we're going to have to look at these numbers and figure out, like, the tier 2 and tier 3 wish list items may have to be postponed to next year, et cetera. And we're going to have to figure out how to make that work. But I share the frustration.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I think it's disappointing that $3 million is a lot of money and could help us with the budget. But then I'm also gonna, I don't want you to think I'm taking the Board of Supervisors approach here, but we've got a lot of things to be thankful for too. We're not $13 million in the hole like the city is. They're not taking our revenue sharing from 40% down to 34%. We're not having to eliminate 150 positions like they are in the city. Over in Bedford County, they're talking about closing Stewartsville Elementary School because of budget cuts. Down to the south in Franklin County, they closed 2 elementary schools last year due to budget reasons. They're talking about a 4-day school week for budget reasons. To the west, over in Montgomery County, they're going to raise taxes 5 cents to help fund the schools.
So let me ask you a rhetorical question. Where are they at when we're 10th in the state of Virginia out of 130 districts?
No, your reference to the bubble chart. I didn't interrupt you when you were on your soapbox.
Okay, but where are they at?
You still want to interrupt?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, Loudoun County, 63 elementary schools, 0 SROs in those elementary schools, which the county has helped fund recently. So, I mean, you at some point, you need to be slightly appreciative
Oh,
of what we do have.
I agree.
And the LCA, the 2.6 million, in part, is what we learned in a meeting last week was that 2.6 million is because they took on an extra $120 million in debt. So that helped increase what we get from the state in the LCI. And then they're responsible for a lot of that interest on that debt. Should we share a portion of that with them? It's hard to say. I'm not saying yes, we should, but there are some points. At some point, it's easy to sit up here and criticize, but they do, as Brent mentioned, have a lot of things other than the schools that they need to help fund. So if we could work on that relationship a little bit, maybe it wouldn't be $3 million.
Are you finished?
I am.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt you. So SROs, let's go to that. They're paying for that?
They're paying for some of it.
Okay.
Yes.
So we got the grant, and once we pushed that, they agreed to take it, right? Then they so eloquently said, look what we did. We got the SROs in the schools, so they're happy with that. I assume they want to fund that, right? Am I wrong? No?
Call and ask.
Yeah, well, and you see where one of the school districts you referenced, you know, what they think about police too, right? So anyway, I mean, look, you're flipping the other way. So I'm just making sure we're talking apples to apples. 2.6 million in debt. Did we not share in that? Did we not share in that piece of the debt? Or,
We do. Yeah, but not
Oh, we do,
all
but
of
we're
it.
not going to mention that we pay our portion of that out of our revenue sharing piece, right? So I just want to make sure. And then we talked about closing a school, right? You're right. Bedford County's considering that. It's been brought up in several conversations in here about closing schools. And now keep in mind,
In what?
I wasn't privy to the $2.6 million discussion. I wasn't privy to the closing schools, any of that stuff. Tell me which schools you're going to close first, and one of them being Bonsack.
I'm saying I'm
Fort
thankful we
Lewis,
don't
which one
have
you
to
gonna
be even
close?
considering closing schools.
Okay, yeah. So
We've
that discussion's brought up, not by me. I'm not bringing it up. I'm hearing it in conversations y'all have had with them. They're not talking to me,
they've
right?
never mentioned to me closing a school.
Okay, never mentioned it to you, but they mentioned it to the others in the group. Okay, I'm just saying, folks, politics are dirty, and you gotta pay attention to the subliminal messages or the messages behind. They've said it to people in this room, so, and not me, because they haven't talked to me, so they haven't said it to me. And I think you respect those people, so I would assume it's true, but I'm not sure. So, being done,
I'll be the last word on that for now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we're all very frustrated with the situation. It is upsetting, and your points, Dr. White, are well taken about where we really need to be going, and this definitely hinders us from being able to get there. I also think, unfortunately, is this going to be the trend going forward, right? We're talking about this year, but what's it going to look like next year and the year after that? So I think those are all concerns about how we're going to get that scale where we want it to be in dealing with less money. It is frustrating. I think there's everybody has made really good points. I would say that what you always say, Tim, is about us being the shining star, right? I agree with that. I think that we are what is going really well for Roanoke County in general. Our schools are good. We have people that move to our areas because of the schools, and we want people to continue to do that. And like you said, we're going to continue to do what we're doing. We're going to do the best that we can. The bubble chart shows that. But we don't want that to change. We don't want to become a retirement community. We want young people to continue to move to our area and bring their kids to our schools. And we have to make sure that we continue to do that. And we need some help to be able to do that. So it is frustrating. I mean, there's really no way to get around that. And I'm frustrated that we did discuss the agreement very recently. Brent brought that up as well. I mean, we discussed the agreement. We talked about how we're thankful for the agreement, and we want to continue with the agreement, And then, like you said, a few months later, we're in a whole different situation. And now we're talking about changing the agreement. And
Yeah,
that
how
is
do they
frustrating.
how do they sit down with you and do that? And then
I mean, I think that's a good question.
By the next
I
meeting.
think I think it's frustrating. I mean, I think that we were all on the same page on that, and now we're in a different position. So, I mean, obviously, there's a level of frustration for everyone here, and we are concerned about what we're going to do, and we're all trying to do the right things for the employees, and we're going to have to try to make that work.
and they can't be hurting for revenue. They're flush with cash. I mean, they've got money oozing. I don't get it, but because they keep raising real estate.
So I guess we'll leave it there because I know we still have the rest of the presentation to go, but I'm glad that everyone had a chance to speak their mind on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. So the only last thing I wanted to mention on this is we do have 23 employees currently in the family plan that if we did offer the employee plus children could automatically convert up.
Either way, you're saying either whether we do the spousal or not, we could add that, and that would that help?
It could save.
It would
people some money.
would reduce the premiums coming in by 200,000, and it wouldn't change the claims, and so it would put us in a more negative position, but it would help those employees.
Okay. Would that hurt us from the reinsurance side? I guess I'm trying to balance with that. You know what I mean? From
I
the
don't think-
self-insurance, I said reinsurance, self-insurance.
I think it could.
It
You correct me
just
if I'm wrong.
shifts the premium to a lower premium, and so it would just be like about 200,000 of less premiums between the general fund and the employee that's going into the health insurance fund
But
itself.
it could help our employees.
But it could
Right.
help your
Okay.
employees.
But
Yeah,
correct
because
me
they
if
would
I'm
be-
wrong, it could potentially have us less money in the reserve
Right.
account, and if we had a bad
Well, that's
claims
because
year.
she was saying like you're bringing less money in,
Correct.
but it does help the employee because if it's just, I mean, you can look at the difference there, the employee plus children versus the family plan. I mean, that's a fairly significant difference. So
Yeah.
it could help some people for
Yeah,
sure
that's great.
if we can add that in.
Aren't you sure?
Well, I was mentioning to her, you may also have some of the people that have signed up family today, if they will stop and take a look at it, like we said earlier, their spouse is going back to that place of employment voluntarily, so they can go to surplus children here. And that may save another group that we can't identify right now. We can't tell you who that might be. But that may help another 20 or 30 or more people that are signed up. Right now, we know the 20-some she's talking about all don't have a spouse on coverage with them and they haven't paid the family rate. But if people will take a look at what they're doing, a lot of them may separate as well.
Mhm.
That way, even if you don't do the spousal exclusion, again, it doesn't help you all, but it helps the
It helps
employee.
them, right? I mean, I think anytime you add the spouse on your plan, it's more expensive. So, I mean, I have my kids on my own plan, but my husband's not on there, so it does save us money between the two of us, you know. So,
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's definitely gives us another option, and that's what we were working towards last year when we were doing this, right? We were trying to offer new options to help, and I think this is a really good one.
And so let me to expand upon that. So if we did the HMO 2000, if your spouse came off, you would go from a family to employee and children. That's approximately $400 a month.
I mean, that's a huge savings.
Yes,
Mhm.
and if that spouse goes to another plan, theirs is probably going to be paid for. Plus, they save that $400. I mean, that's a
Right.
pretty good chunk of change.
Or
Well,
at
yeah,
least that
we don't know what
spouse-
their plan
No,
would be,
we
but
don't. But
that spouse going to the other plan.
it could be
might
a savings, yeah.
No cost difference, or they might pay $200 at their place of work and end up with $200 extra in their
Right.
hand.
right.
that's a big deal. Yeah.
I think it's good for sure. Are we moving to?
Yeah, we can move on. So I guess just if y'all want to let Dr. Soltis know or Dr. Nicely know as we get closer to needing to adopt, if you want to adopt this or not, and along with the spousal coverage exception, so that we can make sure we have the
One thing
information ready for you to adopt properly.
I guess there's not a way to know how much less would be going into the reserves. I guess there's no way to calculate that, right?
For the 23, it would be 200,000 less.
Okay, so okay,
Yeah, I
mean, that's
already
something to think
calculated
about.
that.
all right. So something to think about as well, because that's less money going in the pot, essentially. So, okay.
Okay. I did want to quickly revisit the state revenue, the crossover numbers. The VDOE, I do believe the day after I presented to you, the VDOE published their own spreadsheets. And the House bill spreadsheet was a little bit different from what I received and was able to use from the actually House. So the two spreadsheets were a little incongruous. So the amount of revenue that we're getting from the House bill went down slightly by 334,956. So you can see the revenue that we would be looking at for operating under the general fund under House Bill 30. The increase is 8.4 million. The Senate bill came through, and we got the spreadsheet in that from VDOE, and so the operating revenue for that will be 9.1 million. And if you look at the total, we put this by fund. The instructional resources is our like textbook fund, and then we have grant fund and nutrition fund. So the House bill, I'll just reiterate, the 4.7 million in the House bill includes about 4.4 million of the flexible funds that will be one-time spending. So we're really not planning on using that at this point. We just don't want to put anything out there. We've heard that the Senate and House are not very close, and they may not even adopt a bill by the time the session ends. And so, due to the politics involved, we always go with the lower of the two. Even though the total lower for the Senate is 9.3, the total lower in the operating fund is the House, which is 8.4. And it would be my recommendation that we build our budget based off of the House bill and just hold the 4 million off to the side. Is we can help do some additional one-time items with that if we need going forward. So then we'll jump through the priority list. This first page is details of our revenues. So you'll see I dropped in the state revenue number. What's in yellow did change. And I did double check, and all of the yellows are the correct changes. I didn't miss anything this time. So if you picked up your PowerPoint from the last meeting and the PowerPoint from this meeting, you'll clearly see what we added or has been removed. So the state revenue number was, I guess, massaged a little bit based off of the new worksheet. The Roanoke County revenue sharing, they updated their number. They received the population number for Lord and Cooper, and it went up a little bit. It went from 96,550 up to 97,260, so that reduced our revenue by 141,628. And so that's the regular revenue sharing agreement. And then the other change is the 3 million being shown in here, which is the one-time ask by the county to reduce the revenue outside of the revenue sharing agreement that you have already spoken about. So at the end of the day, that brings us down to 9.7 million. There are no changes in the other amounts. 9.8 million of new money for this next year. So then I don't want to beleaguer all of the rest of them, but I'll kind of pause as we get to them. Every single one of these are kind of set up the same way. We have the priority item, we have the tier level, we have whether the general fund is covering it, whether another fund or means is covering an item, or whether that item is left unfunded under the kind of recommendation that we have for you right now. And so I've worked with Dr. Soltis and Dr. Nicely to kind of shift things around to where it seems to be best for the division. So this is definitely subject to your scrutiny, and if you choose to shift other items to do different like a raise or something different, by all means, let us know and we can get that rearranged for the final adoption. Under the HR slide, we are putting in here the health insurance, the 10% premium push to the employee. This number didn't change from, I had two different numbers in the last slide. It was an error on my behalf, and I do apologize. The number on this slide was wrong, but the number that was presented earlier with the budget was correct, and that was the 3.7 million that would cost for the general fund to cover all but a 10% increase in the premiums for our employees going forward, which is what we've already talked about. The next item is we built in a 3.5% raise for our employees. So that would be a $2.4 million increase, which is largely offset by the VRS savings for the teacher contribution. So the VRS rates went from 14.21 down to 12.2, and that ended up being a pretty significant reduction of almost $2.2 million.
And that's why we can do a bigger raise than the typical had been, what, 1.6 million for a step, or for a 1% raise, I'm sorry. And so because that dropped, that's why that number looks better than it could have.
Yes. If that hadn't have dropped, we would not be able to do a whole lot at all this year. So that was definitely good timing for our division. And the way, just to remind everybody, the way that the VRS contribution works, it is adopted on a biennial basis. And so the 12.2% was what we paid in 2026 and 2025. The lower rate is what we will pay. I think I said that backwards. The 14.21 is the current rate. I apologize. And last year's, the 12.2 will be the 26 and the 27. So they adopt the VRS rate on a biennium, right? And so that'll help us going forward. The other change on here, you'll see we added a $14,763 line. And this was, it was asked if we could convert the one-time stipend for employees that are at or above the top of the scale to being a part of creditable compensation. In order to do that, we applied the VRS rates along with the retiree health credit rate, the group life and disability rates to come up with a total cost, and that was an additional $14,763. So the recommendation is that the 1,000, instead of being a one-time stipend that they would get, it would just be a part of their salary of credible compensation for the year, and then that would be their base going forward.
Does everybody understand that?
Not exactly. No.
Well, so previously, because it's an extra stipend, this is people who are above the scale. They've been getting that longevity stipend. However, it doesn't count toward their VRS payout from when they retire. So this request came from some employees. Say, hey, would you consider that? So Susan costed it out. It costs about $14,000 to do it. I mean, I would recommend it. I think it's fair.
Are there long-term ramifications? Is it going to be an extra $14,000 every year?
I think the main thing to say out loud, and then we clarified that with the people who requested it, is, you know, it's not like we're not creating new steps here. So it's $1,000. That's what it is, right? So, I mean, currently, right? So we're not saying, okay, this year it's 1,000, next year it's more. So they seem to understand that. So, you know, the longevity stipend is what it is. But if we do that little conversion, they get at least, let's say they get that for 5 years, that's $5,000 more dollars they can get toward their VRS, right. You know. So.
And then, and I don't know if y'all want me to point out everything that was put in the unfunded, but we did put everything funded except for the online academy stipends for the $62,000. So these were the changes in the HR list. Any questions? Moving to the administration list. The only change on this one, we were able to find everything except for the truancy and intervention specialist. And this is a position that is sitting in the All MBA grant right now. It was added is part of that grant, and the individual that's in that position is not going to return to that position next year. And so we will lose the position, but we're not going to lose a person, if that makes sense.
Can I jump in here? This was money that we used COVID money for, and the purpose of it was to help get kids back to school. And by the fact that, you know, we're however many years away from COVID now, those were meant to be temporary, you know, interventions to get them back. And the fact that the individual's retiring, you know, we can do it without adversely cutting somebody.
So then school counseling, the social and emotional learning program remained. Moving into special education and pupil personnel, we've got 3 IAs, 2 in a new facts class and 1 in a prep facts class. So it's 3 positions. They were able to work with HR to redirect existing positions, and so we're not going to hire new positions for them. We're just redirecting existing positions. And so we dropped that in the middle column so that it would look, you would know, you know, we're redirecting 3 positions that could have been used elsewhere, and we're being set aside for being used elsewhere, but we are going to use them for these programs. So we didn't want you to think that these programs were not being taken care of and being funded. They're just being funded with reallocating existing resources. And then there is one, and I think one board certified behavior analyst in the unfunded column. And it is our understanding that Dr. Harmon would like to add that maybe in a future year, but for next year, having the 2 additionals will provide an equity across the division that they really need.
And I'm assuming if the revenue comes in higher from the state, then we would just drop these unfunded in the funded.
Certainly.
Which is what I was going to say at the end, that, you know, whatever we adopt could change based off of whatever the final governor's budget is.
Moving into elementary instruction, we were able to fund everything except for the grade level coordinators. That is left in the unfunded column. Moving into secondary instruction, the choral music resources and student advisory council was left in the unfunded column. And assessment and research, the data aggregation software remained in the unfunded column. For career and technical education, the CTE supervisor, the uniforms, and the program stipend for industry career switchers remained in the unfunded column. For facilities and operations, fire extinguisher replacements, door parts, and building materials remain in unfunded, and we partially funded HVAC parts and price increases. Pretty much that was our plug, and anything we had left we tried to give to them, just because we know HVAC prices are increasing, and so whatever we had left over, we dropped in there. Under finance, the entire OPEB contribution moved to unfunded. And just to remind you, the OPEB contribution, what we've done in the past is paid $92,000 a year towards the trust to keep our liability low on the books. We had a recommendation that if we kept down that path, even though it's cheap on an annual basis, we were going to severely overfund that trust, and we didn't want to be in that position either. And so we received a schedule, and it was in the last work session, and it's about 4 years or 5 years of planned contributions to get us to a 75% level. And the first year would have been the $500 and 18, 885. But we're just gonna, I mean, we don't have to do it. It would help our financial statements at the end of the day. It would help the county, with their bonding levels at the end of the day. But it's not a
Requirement.
it's not a requirement, and the axe is not going to fall if we don't do it. So then the other two things on my list that came off were the fleet replacement fund transfer. So we will not be replacing any buses, any aging vehicles in our fleet next year.
Didn't we skip last year
I
I
too?
know,
was
I
just
was
gonna
just
say,
thinking
isn't
that
this the
too.
second year in a row?
This is the second year in a row.
So what does that look like?
We're gonna be fixing some old stuff.
Do you want to chime in?
No, I was just it's the second it was this year, next year, 2 years ago. So now our maintenance costs are gonna go up. That's a given.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ty, I couldn't see you earlier. But yeah, so now the maintenance costs are a given to go up. I mean, this is classic not understanding, but anyway, whatever.
And then the amount that we're trying to build back in, each year we're trying to add 250 to the capital maintenance program, just to build that up each year, because we just have aging facilities and HVAC is costing an arm.
And it's costing a lot. Everything's costing more. HVAC especially.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that from residential. So
Moving into moving into technology. Mr. Terry went through and worked some magic with his vendors and took a look. We are removing grades 1 and 2 from the replacement plan right now. What is currently in the schools will remain in the schools. They're just going to be outside of their warranty. They're still on the carts and can be used, but we will not be replacing them with new laptops. So that's the 245, 675 that was moved into the unfunded. With the Promethean boards, instead of replacing the next batch, because we're kind of on a replacement schedule for Prometheans, instead of replacing any now, what we will do is replace the operating system card, the OPS card that's in each of the Prometheans, and that will help them all run better and run similar to each other. And we will replace all of the Prometheans, or not replace, but buy new ones for RCCTC. And so that's the bigger cost included. The other items that will not be funded off of technology are the Verkada bus cameras associated with the FirstNet network, the ITRT, and then the middle school vape detection systems. And then the Diligent community software was funded. So at the end of the day, what we've presented to you with our state, county, and other miscellaneous local revenue coming in, we have balanced some of our tier 1, tier 2 items as shown on the previous slides. The other funds are items that are being taken care of, but in a different way, either through the grant fund, through current positions being reallocated, or even some of it's in the nutrition fund. And then unfunded are the different tier items that we did not get built into the plan as it exists today. So that's all I have. Coming up is the scheduled adjournment. I already mentioned we're still not sure if we're going to get a final budget at that point in time. I don't think that the folks who work out the differences have even talked yet. And so I think it is not necessarily, I think we're facing another year of uncertainty when it comes to the state budget. So I think we will do what we typically do and adopt what we think is our best estimate using the lowest
Control.
state number in front of us, and then we'll have to come back and revisit it at a later date. If we need, we can have a work session on the 30th if you have specific items you need us to look into or change or switch around. We can have that work session. If you want to adopt everything as it is presented, we can just bring it to the meeting on the 31st. So you'll just have to let us know what you want from us, and then we'll take it to the Board of Supervisors in April. And that's all I got.
Thank you.
Dr. Soltis, they say if this is an actual change in the formula permanent, or is this a one-time?
So at this point, it's a one-time thing, but I do think they are saying we're gonna have to look at the revenue sharing agreement.
I'd like to say thank you to Joe McNamara and Drew Barano for coming up with this revenue sharing agreement and never having to break it. I thought it was a nice plan. Everybody has thought it was a nice plan. You know, they've whittled it down some over the years, but to my knowledge, those two did. And what a good tool they came up with.
Does anyone have anything else? Okay, meeting adjourned.